Pandemic Studios were probably best known for the original Star Wars Battlefront games, Destroy All Humans series, and a highly ambitious, truly non-linear explosive sandbox open-world game, Mercenaries. But their last title was The Saboteur from 2009, a game that I really enjoyed and was saddened to learn almost immediately upon the game release that EA has closed the studio. Despite being a more story-driven experience than Mercenaries, the gameplay, helped by the wonderful presentation, was still the best part of the game. And while it hasn't aged as gracefully as I was hoping it could, replaying it was a fun experience. The gameplay basics feel great. Shooting Nazis in the face is as exciting as it used to be, with just the right amount of challenge, where you do need to consider automatic cover occasionally, but more often than not you just run and gun. Or stealth. The game has a simplified hitman approach to social stealth gameplay, where enemies killed in close combat had their uniform intact, which you could use to your advantage, as you either try to find a more beneficial spot to start shooting, or even attempt to perform your tasks while in disguise, sabotaging and exploding enemy bases and armored vehicles. Even parkour still feels good. It's less fluid and responsive than what Assassin's Creed titles of today allow, but for 2009, this Saboteur was much better. But gameplay alone doesn't make the experience memorable. It's quite good, but the overall presentation and details elevate the whole experience to a different level. And there's just so much to talk about. With the quick nature of my reviews, I don't want to go too deep, and hopefully the visuals in the video help explain what I mean, but what I want to emphasize is how amazing the approach to music in Cars was. Just have a listen and see if you notice. There are several separate mixes of music from the car depending on if the door is closed, if you sit in it, and most importantly, the music mix changes from being true to how it would sound in a car to being an ambient game soundtrack as you start driving. It's so simple yet so incredibly brilliant. And the game is full of these tiny but impactful details that a lot of modern games still often lack. But what the modern games have usually is a more comfortable user experience. Using the map, different menus isn't always comfortable. The game doesn't autosave after you complete random open world objectives, so you have to save manually if you're doing them between missions, because in missions the autosaves do exist. Also, some of the mission design feels dated. None of it is deal-breaking, but it's something that you do notice. Also, the story is disappointing. There's a potential here with both the storyline and the characters, and at times the game shines, the banter works, and it all fits together. But the very next scenes, the characters can become really unlikable, and the story jumps between beats way too quickly to feel meaningful. The game holds on its setup and gameplay alone, but the story really had the potential here that remained not realized. The really bad aspect of the game is in how the needs of that generation hardware created certain limits that directly affect the basics of gameplay. The fact that it can look all the times and that draw distance is limited would have been totally fine if it was just the visual, but for a game that allows you to climb on top of roofs and towers and use giant guns there to shoot Nazi equipment, it quickly becomes apparent that despite seeing things at a rather close, especially by modern gaming standards, distance, in their lower quality version, they're completely immune to being shot at. Some things when loading in can break as well, as numerous cars can start flying as they get closer to you, simply because as they get their higher quality model, it gets stuck inside of the road, leading to unpredictable, if at times at least funny, consequences. The Saboteur had a potential to be great, but it ended up being very good. Yet despite that, it flew under radars for most people and seems to be mostly forgotten by now, which is a real shame. It is one of the better examples of the open world games, and it could also be relatively easy to remaster this title and fix its biggest limitations with the draw distance and also adding more autosaves to the game. Unfortunately, doing this won't bring Pandemic Studios back and give more money to EA, but at least the game will get the recognition it really deserves.